So before we begin, let's take a moment to celebrate this one. You showed up. You're here because you care about investing in your health. I'm so proud of you. I hope you are too. Hi, friend. I'm Marilee. I'm a certified menstrual coach, and when it comes to your cycle, I'm here to help you get it together. Today, we're going to talk about how tracking your cycle is ultimately going to become the biggest life hack that you could tap into in 2025. Whether you're just starting out or someone who's been tracking for a while, everyone can learn something from collecting their own data. And tracking looks different for everyone. I mean, honestly, back in the day, my tracking was so bad. Like, I would pretty much just guesstimate whenever my cycle would come. And I mean, for the most part, I was like kind of right. But yeah, it was just not good. I was like, well, it didn't really do much for me other than me knowing like what week I needed to stuff pads in my purse, but I didn't put an emphasis on tracking because I didn't feel like I needed to. Like I literally used to be someone who didn't give two rats behinds about my cycle. Like I really didn't like it. I didn't care for it. I was like, I don't need it because I'm not having sex and I'm not trying to get pregnant. So I don't even understand why I need to be bleeding right now. Like that was my entire mentality. So because I didn't value my cycle, I didn't find tracking my cycle valuable. Like it didn't matter to me. And now knowing what I've learned, understanding that the menstrual cycle is considered like the fifth vital sign. Like, you know how when you go to the doctor and you get your vitals checked, like you get your temperature, your blood pressure, like all those kinds of things. Like, yeah, the menstrual cycle is something that is detrimental to understanding your overall health and well-being. Me didn't really realize that before. Now that I do, now I'm tracking. And tracking your cycle is ultimately like the first step to aligning your daily habits with your body's flows. And before we can align with our flows, we have to learn them. So settle in, grab a sippy. I've got some kombucha today. This is the Valentine's kombucha as well. I think it's hibiscus, blood orange, and rose. Cheers. That's good. And let's chat. Tracking your cycle is a huge act of self love and discipline. And tracking your cycle is going to help you understand so many things about yourself. Like you're going to be able to understand your mood shifts better because depending on what phase of your cycle you're in, your hormones are, fluctuating. They're at different levels. And this can have a direct correlation with however you're feeling. For example, estrogen can have a lot of different effects on your mood, especially when it's rising in your follicular phase. Its presence can kind of create more serotonin and endorphins, which are like making you happy and chill, just overall improve your mood. And it also has a bit of a suppressing effect on cortisol, which is known to be the stress hormone. So things that may seem normally really annoying or stressful in other parts of your cycle may not be as hard in your follicular phase when estrogen is higher. All that to say, when you're on your period, your hormones are at their absolute lowest points. So if you're not exactly the happiest camper when you start bleeding, it could be the absence of your hormones that's, causing that on top of like other stuff that you're probably dealing with, like cramps and stuff like that. And trust me, baby girl, we will get to the cramps. We will get to all of that soon. Honestly, in the next episode, we're going to talk a lot about progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone in depth because those are like the key star hormones of your cycle. So we'll dig a little bit more into those things a bit later, but just hang on with me for now. Right now, we're just trying to understand how being able to tell where you are in your cycle and communicating how you're feeling can ultimately help you paint a better picture of what your body's going through. Tracking your cycle is also going to help you recognize irregularities. Once you've tracked your cycle for a bit, you're going to be able to highlight things that you know are in or out of norm for you. Like if your body temperature usually is around a certain degree, if you're bleeding, like how heavy that flow is or how light, you'll be able to notice more accurately if you're having like multiple periods or like the absence of periods. If you're experiencing any PMS symptoms, which PSA about PMS is normalized, but it is not normal. Your body is trying to tell you something. PSA over. Also, if you're not going into your luteal phase, you'll be able to notice that. And that's a sign of anovulation, like you not ovulating. So that's also something really important to know and track as well. So I feel like I kept touching the mic or like kept bumping it when it was like on my shirt. So I'm just going to hold it. I'm just going to hold it for now because I'm still getting used to like filming with a mic. My actual camera mic is a little messed up. So I was like, I need an external mic. So don't mind me. We're still here. We're doing all the things. Um, but as you're kind of, tracking everything and as you're noticing all these things, you may also be able to pinpoint moments of cause and effect. So for example, like, oh, the banana that I ate today isn't as ripe as it was yesterday. And so I'm a little bit more energized. And I didn't really crash because I didn't have as much sugar from the ripe bananas. Kind of something like that. Or even like, oh, I'm having a hard time focusing today. I wonder why. Oh yeah, I just ovulated. My estrogen is taking a bit of a dip. That could be what's causing my brain fogginess. So when you're tracking, you're able to create more language around the things that you're feeling and experiencing, which really helps to kind of validate your experience because I honestly felt like I was just losing my mind all of the time. I was like, am I crazy? I was like, why do I feel so great and amazing and energetic one day? And then literally a few days later, I feel like I got hit by a truck. And this whole experience has really just helped to validate my experience as a woman and the way that I show up in the sense that, like, okay, I understand what my body is doing right now in these phases. I'm going to give myself grace. I'm going to create space for me to rest and to plan accordingly. So that way I'm working in tandem with my body's rhythms and not against them. Honestly, tracking just really creates the path for alignment. It provides data that you can then use to assess and be able to make specific decisions about things that you want to change or incorporate or remove from your daily routines that can really help you in the long run, um, and really just help you adhere to the flow, to your body's flow. So, now that we understand why tracking is so important, let's talk about ways to effectively track your cycle. There are, of course, different ways that you can do this. You can do it old fashioned pen and paper way with a journal. You can also track on an app, and there are a lot of different apps. If you have an iPhone, there's like one that comes with your iPhone. There's a lot of third party external ones. You can also just track in your notes app. I kind of do that sometimes. I am in the process of making a journal though, because I really do love like writing everything down and just having that moment where I just kind of like sink into myself and just pen to paper express my feelings and my emotions. And I'm a big proponent of like morning pages, and I love that I kind of like to include my tracking in my morning pages. So I really just want to have a really awesome physical space where I can keep all that. So stay tuned for that. It's in the works. um who knows when that's going to come out, but there's a lot of different ways that you can track and through a lot of different means. um I would encourage you to track all 4 phases. I know that that seems like a lot. Most people just kind of track their periods, how long it is between their periods, and like how, they're feeling, or maybe like a few symptoms that they have around their periods. But I would really love to encourage you, at least for like a month or two, to track all 4 phases. So that way you understand how your body's feeling as it's transitioning between those different periods. Period, as in like a section of time, not your actual bleed. Because the more data that you'll have, the more you'll be able to accurately make meaningful decisions about things that need to change. And you'll have a better understanding of how those changes can positively impact the lifestyle that you're trying to live or are currently living. So let's say that you want to start tracking today. How do you know where you are in your cycle? Let's talk about it. Day one of your cycle is of course, your menstrual bleed. That is the first day that you're bleeding, all the way up until the very last day that you see blood. That is your period. That can last usually anywhere between 2 and 7 days. And again, at this point, your hormones are at their lowest. From the first day after your bleed up until the day that you ovulate, you'll be in your follicular phase. Technically, your follicular phase starts on the first day of your bleed because your follicular phase includes your menstrual period. However, I like to just kind of focus on late follicular since the first part of that is occupied with your bleed, right? So, in total, your follicular phase is usually about 2 weeks, with the first week of that being dedicated to your bleed, anywhere again between anywhere 2 to 7 days that you're bleeding. And then late follicular is that remaining period of time, depending on how long your bleed was up until you ovulate. So, it really depends on your cycle how long that phase is. Usually for me, it's about 7-ish days. Um, yeah, so it's about 7-ish days until I ovulate. And you can tell that ovulation is getting close with the presence of cervical mucus. Cervical mucus is, of course, like the little gooey, sticky discharge that you're experiencing as you're getting closer to that egg being released. And your cervical mucus will kind of start off as like kind of thick and chunky. And as it gets like more watery and stretchy and clear, that's how you know that ovulation is right at the door. And then when you actually do ovulate, you normally can feel it. It'll sometimes feel just like a little pinch, might be a little bit more painful for some people, but you'll feel it on either side that you're ovulating from. You usually alternate ovaries when you're ovulating. So 1 month you'll feel it on the left, maybe the next you'll feel it on the right. That's normally how it goes. But if you're ovulating from the left twice, I wouldn't say that that's like, oh gosh, you're in trouble, but just that's something to be mindful of because you could be someone who you know, doesn't normally ovulate from alternating ovaries. This is why you need to track so you can understand what is normal and what isn't normal for your body. So that way you can have the right dialogue when you go to your healthcare provider or a certified medical professional and talk with them about these things in case there's maybe something going on with your body that maybe you wouldn't have known. And so, the way that you'll know that you've ovulated, again, if you feel the little pinch, also your basal body temperature. I track my basal body temperature every single day. um, I know that may seem like a lot for some people, but it's really easy. I do it as soon as I wake up in the morning, and I know that I've ovulated based on my temperature because once you've ovulated, your body temperature will rise and it will stay elevated up until the time that you bleed. And it's when you're tracking your cycle, like you can see the rise. Like it's your temperature's fluctuating every day, but it will raise, a bit significantly. Not too significantly, but usually I'll be in the wheelhouse of like 97, like 08, right? Normally. And then when I ovulate, I'm at like 97, 75. That's the jump. Like we're still in the same degree, like main degree of 97. Sometimes we go into 98 and sometimes I'm closer to 96. But you'll be able to see the significance of that temperature staying, of rising. And then for the rest of my cycle up until my period, I'm like 97, 78, 97, 80, 83, 50. Like I'm above a certain threshold. And then when I have my period, all of a sudden I'm back to like 9702 or like 96.99. That's how you can kind of tell, based on that. And then also, you'll be able to know if you've ovulated once you start seeing your cervical mucus dry up. Because once you ovulate, that's when progesterone is starting to be made. And that hormone does a lot of things. It also is what triggers your cervical mucus to clean up shop. Like, all right, let's get all this out of here. Let's dry it up, boys. Clean it up. But that's how you know that you've like done the within the 24 hours that I've ovulated. I talked about before how I like to use ovulation as a phase as well, and I counted about 5 days. So I kind of take, or 4 days really. I kind of take like the 2 days before I ovulate, the day of ovulation, and the day after ovulation. I consider that my ovulatory phase. And the way that I kind of know where I'm getting to that phase is through the cervical mucus. Like once I'm getting like almost like clear cervical mucus, I'm like, all right, I'm in my ovulatory phase. We're high energy, we're go, go, go. Um, that's honestly my telltale sign that I am in my ovulatory phase, that I'm going to be ovulating within the next like 2 days. And then once I know that I've ovulated, again, through feeling the ovulation, my basal body temperature, and my cervical mucus, that's how I know that I'm now in luteal. And I'm like, all right, now we're in a completely different zone. And honestly, if you know when you ovulated, you can pretty much almost guesstimate to the T when your period is going to be, because ovulation tends to happen directly in the middle of your cycle. So, however many days there were in your cycle up to ovulation, you can just kind of mimic that or mirror that to the other side. And you can be like, okay, I'm most likely going to get my period on this day. But also, if you're tracking your basal body temperature, you can know exactly when your period is going to start, because your temperature will drop significantly from where it was at that, super raised temperature. So, like, I wake up in the morning, I'll take my temperature. And if my temperature is significantly low, I instantly know, okay, I'm probably getting my period today. And that just makes me so much more prepared and at ease. And I can just plan my day accordingly because I have that information to begin with. Also, tracking your basal body temperature is amazing too, because usually when you get sick, or if you feel, if your body is like about to get sick, your temperature drops. And if my temperature drops when I know that I'm not going to be on my period, that signals to me that, like, okay, there's a foreign body that my body is fighting right now. How can I help? Let me go get some ginger tea. Let me go take extra like supplements. Let me make sure that I, you know, do something super active to get my blood moving. Just, you can be more preventative about things. And I love being a preventative girly. I hate that I live in a reactionary society. Like, Western medicine is so reactionary. It's like, okay, well, you're experiencing these symptoms. Here is what we will give you in response. Instead of being like, here are the things that you can do to prevent this circumstance from happening in the first place. Like, that's the kind of area I would like to be in. And that's how I try to live my life. So I try to be very preventative, and tracking your cycle just really creates that groundwork for you of being preventative, and you can more easily stay on top of things. Different signs that you want to look for, to track and write down when you're in this journey. You want to be looking at your changes of energy, your changes in mood, your changes in productivity, changes in your diet, or if you're having cravings, or if you're not really feeling like eating. And then also physical changes like your cervical mucus, your basal body temperature, um, soreness, fatigue, anywhere, stuff like that. Those are all really great things to pay attention to when you're tracking. So, of course, I have to give you a question to reflect on. I would love to ask you, what's one way that you can incorporate tracking into your daily habits? For example, like I said, I take my temperature first thing in the morning as soon as I wake up. Like, I literally have my thermometer right above my head. So, like, my alarm goes off, I turn it off, without even like opening my eyes, I grab the thermometer, I put it in my mouth, and then I sit there and wait for a bit for it to like warm up. Because if you take your temperature immediately, um, it can kind of mess up the numbers, because the thermometer is like still like cold, and that can mess up your numbers. So I usually like to lay there for like 2, 3 minutes, to let it warm up. I do have multiple alarms, so I don't fall back asleep. I don't fall back asleep anymore, but I used to. So I would have like a 5 minute alarm right after to like, all right, hey girl, get up. Then I take my temperature, and then I'm like, okay, once I have my temperature, I track it immediately in my notes app. And then I'll get up and go into the living room to do my morning pages. And at the top of my morning pages, I always write out what phase I'm in, what phase day, total cycle day. And then I used to write down my temperature in my morning pages, but I don't do that anymore since I'm just tracking it in my notes app. But that's how I kind of incorporated that. And then also like at night when I balance my budget or like track my expenses, um, I will pop over to my other spreadsheet and track how I felt about certain things throughout the day. Like this is kind of what I ate and I felt really good, or like I was really tired around 3 o'clock, stuff like that. Let me know in the comments the answer to that question. Tell me how you're going to start incorporating tracking into your daily habits. Don't just talk about it, be about it. Like, honestly, if you made it to the end of this, you are actually trying to make a real change in your life. So show me. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's one thing that you can do to incorporate this in your daily habits so that you can get on the ball with this and start collecting your data so that way you can have something to work with. And then the affirmation that I want to give to you for the week is the better I track, the more power I have. Tracking gives you knowledge. Knowledge is power. The more you know about your body, the more power you have to be able to optimize it. And that's really, really important. And as we're wrapping up, I just want to leave you with this truth from Proverbs 4:7. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding. I want to leave you with this because tracking your cycle is an act of gaining wisdom about your body and yourself. And I know that it can seem really daunting and just not like a fun thing to do. Though it cost all you have, get wisdom. It is so imperative for you to spend this time learning yourself and your body's rhythms and flows. This could be very well like life changing, life saving information. It's imperative for you to know. And you can't always trust the doctors to do everything for you. You have to take some kind of responsibility and accountability for yourself and your health as well. So I want to empower you with this. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here again. Let me know if anything resonated with you. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if there's anything specific that you'd like for me to talk about as well. You can reach me on my Instagram at Merrily Merrily. You can also find me on TikTok at that same handle at Merrily Merrily. And yeah, subscribe, share this with someone who you also feel like needs this information, which really should be anyone in your contacts, really, because everyone needs to know this. But yeah, thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Side note, kombucha in a wine glass is like one of the most decadent things you could ever gift to yourself. Like, I'm not really much of a drinker, but I love like the sophistication and elegance of a wine glass. And putting kombucha in a wine glass is just creme de la creme, top tier. Like, you feel so beautiful and elegant and classy and sexy, but also so much better because it's actually something really good for you going into your body. So yeah, top tier hack: put kombucha in a wine glass.